In this video, we're going to be talking about Fantasy Grounds Classic PC management, how you can manage your characters, files, and information here in Fantasy Grounds. We're going to talk about how to create, import, export, and managing ownership of the various player characters files. So all the player characters or records are going to be located here in our characters selection character window. When there are multiple ways that a player can get a character here. First off, if a player has created a character using Fantasy Grounds in the Manage Characters section, so they load it up. They use Manage Characters to create their NPC, not NPC. They create their character. They're in Manage Characters, and then when they join your table, that characters will be an option for them to select, and it will automatically import into your campaign. The second way for a player character to be created is directly here. The player can go ahead and click the green plus to add an entry. And this will go ahead and create a blank character sheet, which can then be filled out with whatever information you want. You give it a name, all of that normal character creation stuff. Now, next up is we can import our character. So perhaps a player has created a character from a previous campaign and they want to include it in this one. So they will have exported it. Either their DM or whoever will have exported the character for them, and they will provide it to you as the DM. So you will receive an XML file from the player, and then you'll be able to import that XML file. So in order to import it, we can either use the chat command, import char, or we can use the import capabilities here in the character selection window. So the first import capability we have is here with the little blue up arrow. So the little blue up arrow takes us to the import character window. Now the characters that you see here are actually pre-generated characters that are available from modules. So these are not the ones that your player provided to you. We'll talk about these in just a moment. To get to the XML file, you just remember where you have saved it on your hard drive. Click on the import character file again, the blue up arrow again, and it will ask you to select a character. So this is a character that I previously exported. I can click open, and it tells me it has imported correctly. So now that I've closed that, I reopen my PC, and here's my newly created or imported character with all of its stats and abilities. Notice that exporting and importing does not include the portrait. So the portraits are based on what files are local to your machine. So when your player selects a portrait, it's pulling from a file on their machine. They'll be able to reset it when they select their character. Now the other type of character that they can select from is the pre-generated characters. You can choose what to import into your campaign. Now as I just demonstrated, if you click the blue up arrow the first time, this takes you to the list of pre-generated characters. Now this particular list comes from a FGC pregens module, which I currently have loaded. Now I can import any one of these simply by clicking on the green plus. I can also export them to an XML file by hitting on this blue down arrow if I want to save this off for whatever reason. A secondary way, which accomplishes the same thing, is to come here into the library, select your pregens module, click on the pre-generated characters, and then you have access to the green pluses again. This will just import them into your campaign, and you can choose whichever ones you want. So now we have a couple of characters imported into our campaign. We've got 3 different characters that are selected. Now when a player connects, they will have the option to select which of these characters that they own. They'll only be able to select ones that are not currently owned by another player, and then when they do, the little owner owned by and their character name, or owned by their player name, will appear here. So that's how they go ahead and select that on the selection window. Now, as a DM, you can override that selection. So, for example, let's say Figanofetch is currently owned by player A, and it'll say owned by player A. As a DM, I can override that by right-clicking on the character and either selecting clear owner or selecting take ownership as GM. Now, take ownership as GM means the GM now owns that PC. Players will not be able to select them and make do anything with them. So that's how the GM can. They won't even appear on the character selection window. You can clear the owner, and that'll wipe it out. This is useful, for example, if your players have to select from 5 different pre-generated characters, and they accidentally selected 2 of them. So then you can go ahead and clear whichever one they will not be playing with. Once your players are all set, they've got their characters owned, perhaps they will want to at some point take their character to another campaign. Or maybe you want to save a backup of your character because your player is about to gain a level and they're not quite sure what they should select, and so they want to test out a few different options. So to export our characters, we're going to go ahead and click on the Edit List button. And then here in the Edit List button now we see this blue down arrow. The blue down arrow will allow us to export. You just click it, give your file a name, and remember where it's going to be located. So this is figinofetch, and save. Now that will go ahead and create that XML file where you've saved it with that name, and it'll export this. Now I can import it just as we did a moment ago. If I wanted to re-import it, if I delete figinofetch, I can delete these characters. I can import. Again, I click the up arrow to find the file. I find this figinofetch file and open it, and it's now been imported, and I have figinofetch available to me. So this is a great way to kind of save off a character so that players can go ahead and attempt various kinds of, if they want to gain a level or if they want to try something different, you can do that, and they will have a non-messed up copy if they accidentally screw something up. Thanks, everyone.